Hello and live from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I'm Dr. John Stamey and welcome to ScaryCast. We've got a very interesting show today, one that I'm particularly interested in because I'm going to go find out all about it this coming weekend. We've got the manager of Mystery Hill, Matthew Underwood, with us to tell us all about the fantastic things that go on in Blowing Rock, North Carolina, really right near where I grew up. Matthew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Hope you're doing well, John.
I'm doing great. I've been looking forward to this podcast for quite a while to find out all about what goes on in Mystery Hill. I've heard a lot about it, but believe it or not, we never came up to see Mystery Hill when I was a kid, and I wish I had. So anyway, first of all, tell us a little bit about the legend and the lore of Mystery Hill, and what's it all about?
Okay. So Mystery Hill is an old family attraction. Really grew out of what was the Hudson apple orchard here at the turn of the century between Boone and Blowing Rock. Very successful apple orchard run by the Hudson family. They're really the ones who sort of discovered something strange happening on the hillside. Um, they they were clearing off a new section of the orchard of the hillside to grow the orchard, and every time the staff and the family would walk out of this certain area, it made them feel strange. They felt dizzy. It didn't feel like walking in a normal section of the hillside. Um, they had no idea what it was. They knew it felt strange, and this is 19 teens, 1920s. It's before the days when you could get on your phone and ask Google, "My hillside feels funny." They knew something was going on, but they didn't know what it was, so they just continued to operate as they did. Um, they noticed strange things over the years and would, they'd have family and friends that they'd take them out there and say, "You got to come see this thing. It's crazy." But it wasn't something they necessarily, they didn't know what it was, so they didn't turn it into an attraction or show anything in the early years. They, we've got stories from them. Uh, one of the things that really got them, they had their grandkids wanted a tire swing, so they hung an old tire swing from one of the trees, and when they went to put the kid in the tire swing and start swinging them back and forth, it only swung on one side of center. It would swing one side, come back to the middle and stop and go the other direction. No matter how hard you pushed it, it would never go past that center, and if you tried to push it past center, it took about twice as much force. And then they started playing around with it and realized it's not just the tire swing. Really, anything you take out on that one little section of the hillside, you take a broom out there or a lady's pocketbook, and it'll take about twice as much force to move it one direction as it does the other when you're out there. It really wasn't until the 1940s that they really started discovering what was going on and started actually showing it to the public. And it was really a whole series of events that happened. We had a blight that hit this region in the early 40s that devastated the apple orchards in this area. Basically, apple trees stopped producing fruit. A new tree would grow, it would start to produce fruit for a couple of years, and then it would just wither and die. And so the Hudsons at this point are getting up in years. And the thought of sort of starting over with a brand new planting of the orchard was very daunting to them. Most of the orchards in this area were getting rid of their native apples, bringing in European varieties of apples, and the Hudsons were just trying to figure out, were they ready to put that much effort into something when they're in their 70s already? And it just happened to be that Mr. Hudson picked up a Life magazine, 1947 Life magazine, and he opens up an article and starts reading it. And it's talking about this place in California where this gravitational anomaly was happening, where the people were going to see this thing, the scientists were doing research, and he's reading about what's happening there. And he's like, "Honey, that sounds just like what's happening on our hillside out here." And they decided to take a trip to go see it. They went to California. They saw this thing, which is now called the Mystery Spot. I'm not sure that that's what they were calling it at the time, but that's what it is now. And they on the trip back, Mr. Hudson told his wife, he said, "Honey, when we get home, I'm going to put up a sign and we're going to start letting people to come see our gravitational anomaly." He said, "I'm going to start charging them a nickel a piece like those people out there are." And his wife said, "Honey, people in California will spend a nickel to see stuff like that, but I'm not sure the people in North Carolina are going to do it." And he said, "Well, we're going to try it anyway." So he got home. He took an old piece of tin roofing that he had and he painted with a paintbrush on it a big arrow pointing at the building. And it said, "This is it, the Mystery Hill." And people started coming to see it and loved it. They did guided tours out and showed them the different things they had found on the hillside. Um, Still not a lot of scientific stuff around it. It was still just, this thing's happening. It's unusual. Something's different than the rest of the hillside out here or most places that you are. And it was successful. They opened up in May of 1948 and they operated it every summer. It was just seasonal. They'd open it up from the middle of May until the end of October every year and let people come see it. And, this is then the day of, roadside America and the automobiles really coming into its age, and tourism in this area was really taking off, and it was very successful. And they operated it up until 1958. And they were really ready to retire. And it just happened to be that my grandfather he ran a restaurant in Boone at the time, but he had a dream of opening up an old fish camp restaurant. He had been to this fish camp and he wanted to open something like that. And there used to be a big lake on property with a big white farmhouse that sat on the side of that lake. And he thought that would make my perfect fish camp. So he came to the Hudsons and said, "I want to buy that house or lease that house or something." And Mr. Hudson said, "Well," he said, we'll sell it to you. We're not going to lease it, but we'll sell it. But you can't just buy that house. You've got to buy the whole property." It was a big piece of property. And they went back and forth. My grandfather first off, knew nothing about Mystery Hill at the time, knew nothing about the anomaly. He was a restaurant guy, and that's what he wanted to run. But they went back and forth. Mr. Hudson was fairly adamant that they were moving to Florida. They were going to retire and move to Florida, and he needed to sell the whole property. So my grandfather went and got a loan and bought the whole property with never an intention of operating Mystery Hill or the anomaly, the attraction. He was going to never open that back up. He was going to just run his fish camp. And he did. The first year they opened up the restaurant, and it was later in the summer when Mr. Hudson came back up and to do some paperwork and stuff. And he came to the restaurant, and the restaurant was very successful. So the whole front porch is full of guests waiting to get a table. And Papa had hired this young kid to sit out there and take people's names. And when Mr. Hudson got there, he said, "Where's Mr. Underwood at?" And they said, "He's back in the kitchen." And he said, "Well, go get him for me. I need him." And Mr. Hudson, or Papa, came out and met Mr. Hudson. And he said, "I can't believe it's in summer season and you've not opened up that anomaly yet." And Papa said, "We're not going to open that up. We're just running the restaurant." And he said, "Let me show you something." And he turned to all those people on the porch and he said, "Folks," he said, "I want to show you something amazing." And he said, "We're going to take you on a tour or something while you're waiting. And you don't have to pay us anything, but we're going to take you and show you something that we think will surprise you. And when we get back, if you're not amazed, you don't owe a thing. But if you thought it was the most amazing thing you've ever seen, I want you to give this man a nickel." And he took him on a tour, took him out through there. They all came back. Every person on that porch, he and Papa a nickel when he got back. Papa turned to that boy that had been taking names for him for tables and said, "Can you do that tomorrow night?" And that was from then on. They did tours of the anomaly. They ran both for a while. We had a flood that washed out the lake, and they decided to shut down the restaurant. And we've operated the attraction ever since. So there's still a family business. Any given day, you could see 4 or 5 generations of us here operating it, and it's really become piece of a piece of roadside America, but a piece of the history of this area. If you think tourism and travel in this area, it's one of those things that you just have to do when you visit the high country. So that was a long answer, probably longer than what you wanted, but
No,
that's how we got here. So
no, you gave me the answer that I absolutely wanted. I can't wait to come there this coming Saturday. My best friend and I and his fiance are coming. We're going to have a grand time. Now, let me ask you something because you're up there in App State territory, Appalachian State University. Have you ever had any of the physicists or scientists out from Appalachian State out to Mystery Hill?
yeah, so they especially the physics department comes over. We do we do tours of the anomaly, and we don't necessarily have all the answers behind what causes it. We've got theories, and so we give those theories, and we talk about the optics of it and the gravitational piece of it. And so they bring their students over and do studies, I guess you could call them, but basically bring the students out and say, let's look at this and think about how this works. We've had other groups in place when they widened the highway out in front of us out here. They were doing blasting, and were very concerned about blasting as close to it as they were, and were they going to affect something. So the Corps of Engineers has done some studies, and just throughout the year, we've had different folks in looking at it. Nobody for sure has ever said this is exactly what causes it, but some fairly good theories around some more than likely some very large masses of an iron ore or some dense mineral in the ground is probably causing some gravitational pull in addition to the Earth's gravitational pull is sort of the thought. Of course, there's the theory. You can't have anything unusual and not have alien theories and ley line theories and everything. So we sort of look at all of it and let people sort of come up with their own ideas. But as far as what we're concerned, we think, and most of the scientists that have been here in the past sort of agree with it, that we sit right on one of the largest iron deposits in the southeast. It was the part of the Cranberry iron mines that the Confederate Army built, and it was the largest operating iron deposits in the world up through the 70s when it shut down. And so we sit on the tail end of that deposit. And so we think if you went in this hillside down here and could dig deep enough, you would find just massive amounts of this extremely dense magnetite iron ore down there. And then that's causing what we're seeing out here. So.
Well, from what I know, there are 21 gravitational anomalies in the United States, and I think the one that is the most phenomenal is the Montana vortex. And
Yep.
my friend Dan Shaw, and I believe you have some of his books there, don't you?
Yep. He's been here before, and we sell some of his books. He's got probably some of the best, the most researched combined information on sort of all of these around the country. So very fascinating. Matter of fact, our when we take the tour, our vortex map that shows where the other locations are comes from a map directly in his book that we blew up and put on the wall over here. So,
All right, well that's great because we're looking to have an Earth Magic conference down in Clayton, Georgia, in October, and love to invite you down because Dan's going to be there talking. I will be talking. We do a lot of paranormal events there in Clayton, Georgia, because they love Bigfoot, they love UFOs, and they're crazy about what we call Earth magic, or the fact that there seems to be energy in and around some portions of the United States, and so we're just looking forward to having a lot of people there. Now, if someone wanted to come up and visit you, what are your hours that you're open? What does it cost to go through? And what are some of the things that you would see?
okay. So we're now open year round. We close Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Eve and Christmas Day are the only 2 days of the year we close. Typically, we're open 10 a.m. till 6 p.m., 7 days a week. Um, During the summer, we might have extended weekend hours here and there, just depending on how busy it is up here. But for the most part, plan on 10 to 6. Uh, you can. We always recommend that you reserve in advance. Just go to mysteryhill.com. You can see all the ticketing options, and tickets vary depending on the season and what activities we've got available. But typically run 24.95 to 29.95 for the general admission, which is going to get you the gravitational anomaly tour and then access to explore that on your own. Section we call the Hall of Mystery, which is hands-on science activities, optical illusion related things, physics related things, and a section called Bubble Rama, which is all about giant soap bubbles. You can put each other inside of a giant soap bubble, those type of things. It also includes two of our museums on site. We have the Mullins collection is here. It's the world's second largest private collection of Native American artifacts. It's over 250,000 arrowheads and Native American artifacts collected by a couple from Hickory, North Carolina over their lifetime. The home of the founders of Appalachian State University is also on site. Built in 1903, it was the home of the first classes for the university. A lot of cool history. The first home in our area to have electricity and running water. First phone call ever made from Western North Carolina was made from the home. The original North Carolina Public Education Act was actually signed into law in the House. So a lot of cool history there. And all that's included in the general admission. We also have, we've grown over the years. We are always looking at adding new things for our visitors to do while they're on site. So we have axe and knife throwing that you can do. We have gem mining, Prospector Hills. You can come and mine for gems and find gems from all of our regional gemstone mines. We have a rodeo rampage bull ride challenge. You can ride a mechanical bull, old time photos. We do special activities. We have a river walk that runs along the property, along the middle fork of the New River, which is the second oldest river in the world and the only river in North America to travel north for any distance. So we do walking tours of that, talk about the history of it and the wildlife in the trout hatchery system and those type of things. So all kinds of activities. When you get online at mysteryhill.com, you can sort of see all those and pick and choose the activities you're looking at doing. So,
Well, that sounds wonderful. Now, I have heard a rumor that you are at the northernmost point of the Bermuda Triangle. Is that correct?
well, I mean, if I'm not sure about the science around it, but we do have, if especially if you look at sort of Dan's maps, it's really interesting when you start looking at drawing lines between these known anomalies and looking at these very distinct triangles that it draws. And the Bermuda Triangle sort of forms a large one that if you put us in there, it sort of creates this very large triangle that ties in with the Bermuda Triangle. I'm not one to tell you the science behind what that is. Dan could probably tell you way more about that than I could. But I love visuals. It's always interesting to look at those maps and say, hey, this is too much of a coincidence. Surely there's something here, right? It just, how could that happen otherwise? So
Well, I'm a former university professor, and I like the name folklore and legend, and that's what you have some of the best in the world there at Mystery Hill. I can't wait to come there. I'm going to, of course, help promote it. You're right; you're really near my hometown of Morganton, and I'm glad I get to do one of my childhood dreams, which is come to Mystery Hill. And we're probably going to be there about 1 o'clock. So I hope you will be there, and want to say hello to you and do just a brief interview that will be on our site, ScaryCast.com. We do what we call it is the paranormal and interesting people. And I can't think of anyone more interesting than you talking a little bit about Mystery Hill on Saturday. We're going to have a great time. And I want to thank you for letting us come up there. And we'll see what else we can do, because this is the type of thing that really fascinates me. It has always fascinated me. A little bit about my background. When I got my doctorate at North Carolina State, not many people were able to get a doctorate out of NC State. I was a research associate at the Ryan Institute of Parapsychology in Durham. And I can tell you that I have seen things there that are very real, that would just shock you, that go on there. I mean, there's so much that is, I don't know if you've got a big, uh, what did you call it, a magnetite ore deposit, but I mean, it's fun. It's great to speculate, and people do enjoy wonderful things like Mystery Hill. So everybody go to mysteryhill.com. Go see it. Go visit Matthew. We've tried really hard to get this interview put together, and I'm so glad we did. I've enjoyed it, and I know everybody else will here on ScaryCast. So go visit Mystery Hill. I will be. In fact, I think there's several people that are coming to see me on Saturday. I can't wait. Can't wait. I'm going to have some of my fans come. So we're going to have a blast. Thank you very much, Matthew, and we'll see you soon at
Sounds great.
mysteryhill.com. Glowing Rock.
Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.